All right, welcome back, Tony, on this segment. So, thank you so much for walking us through the procure to pay overview as well as the different challenges that comes across. In this segment specifically, we'll be talking about the future roadmap of the procure to pay process, some examples, as well as the advantage of AI in the procure to pay space. But before we get into the questions and the nitty gritties, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little more about you?
Yes, sure. I'm Anthony Diaz. I'm Vice President and CFO for a biotech company in the Boston area. I've been as a senior finance person in both public and private companies, both in kind of the smaller organizations to mid-sized organizations. Also had an opportunity to work for a large organization that's we sold for over $5.5 billion. And most of the industries have been in the medical space as well as manufacturing.
Got it. Thank you so much for that introduction, Tony. So, in the last segment, Tony, I remember you mentioning that, embedding AI at different tasks in the procure to pay processes could remove some of the inefficiencies. So, I was just curious if you can highlight some examples of the same.
Yes, I think if we could start using AI, I think it would speed some of the matching process. Obviously, we have a three-way match process in the AP procure-to-pay process, and I think speed, right? I think the computer can read the invoices faster, and quicker than the human, like an accounts payable clerk, and can probably process the invoice a lot quicker, right? Matching the receipt, looking up the receipt, looking up the purchase order, which could take time from an AP person's perspective, and try to match those invoices, both pricing, the quantities, and the unit price, and then figuring out if it's been approved and not approved. So I think that takes a lot of time on an AP person's plate. It's also probably very manual in most organizations. I think the speed and accuracy to match those very quickly and finding out where it match from an AI perspective could really help an AP person. And it doesn't eliminate the AP person's job. I think it just changes his role, right? He's now figuring out what things that the AI has come up with errors, that now he just has to focus on those errors as opposed to focusing on the whole invoice. Also, the processing an invoice, right? I think with AI, most people are now getting invoices electronically through an AP portal or an AP email address. I think we can process invoices 24/7, right? An AP person could be working 9 to 5 or something. But now, we could be getting invoices from different parts of globally, and those invoices could be being processed overnight. And then when you're coming in the morning, or an AP person is coming in the morning, you can just focus on the areas that need to be focused on, like the errors and so on. So I think AI can play a very easy process and kind of the manual matching of the invoices, the receipts, and the purchases.
Correct. So apart from reducing the redundant tasks and activities, you also briefly touched upon how the role of a procurement or an account officer or clerks would evolve with the adoption of AI. Can you double click a little more into that?
Yeah, I think it empowers the finance teams, right? I think it takes away some of this manual clerical work that they get very bored with every day, right? I think on the AP clerk perspective, right? They're just getting hundreds and thousands of invoices. Organizations could have one to as many as 10 AP clerks just annually entering invoices, which I think is, from their perspective, becomes very boring. They don't learn a lot. It's a very manual task, and it's not very motivating and viewed within the organization as a task that is promotable and very visible. I mean, it's a visible part of the organization when things go wrong, but it's not a role that people look at within the organization that they're playing a good part. So I think from an AP perspective, I think once that manual process, as I mentioned, that maybe the AI is not matching all these things. Now you actually just fixing things that AI can't fix, right? Or you're doing analytics, right? You're looking at things like, what is some of the data decisions of some of those invoices. You're looking at some of the trends. You're looking at some of these invoices for potential, opportunities for savings. You're using some of the AI to look at payment terms and schedule those out and helping the company in other ways as opposed to just manually doing some tasks. And the same thing on the purchasing side, right? I think once AI is able to do some of the purchase orders automatically, I think it can go out into the market and find the best pricing for you. I mean, Procure-to-Pay probably has a list of vendors, and they're probably sending out requisitions to the list of vendors and reviewing those, and they're coming back to find the best pricing. I think AI can do a lot of that and then make the selection for you, right? And say, here, we found the best price at Amazon or Best Buy or something like that for a laptop, and then you have to make the decision: do you buy it or not? But at the end of the day, I think AI can go out there, procure the items, get the best pricing, and actually look in the internet to do that. Where it may take a purchasing person maybe hours to figure that out.
Correct. And delve deeper into this topic, Tony, what are the different learnings and unlearnings that you think that need to happen in order to take full advantage of the AI adoption and Procure-to-Pay specifically?
Yeah, I think some of it has always been hesitation for AI to be part of the accounts payable process, the banking process, right? I think some of it is around security and obviously minimizing any risks around there. So I think if you have a good security program, good segregation of duties, good controls around cash and cash distribution, I think AI can still play a huge part in here, and that, again, they could do a lot of the heavy lifting up front. You can still make the decisions. You still have control of the data. You can still make the approval process. And I think AI can adopt to your approval process that you have in your organization. And I think some of the learnings, right, is what exactly do we need from an approval process? And I think with AI, you probably need a little less. It can look for duplication of invoices. It can look for duplication of, it can look for pricing errors. So all those things can, you can use AI to minimize some of that risk that you may have had in the past, where it may require double approvals. It may have required, people to match the invoices and stamp the invoices. So you're making sure that you won't get two invoices. So I think some of that could be eliminated with some of the AI adoption.
Got it. So, Tony, until now we spoke about the advantage of AI and how it can automate the different redundant tasks when it comes to Procure-to-Pay. But I wanted to get your view on the different risks that you see in the adoption of AI in the Procure-to-Pay space.
Yeah, it's just that the risks will be people risks, I believe, right? I think what you'll see is maybe some hesitation in the AP world, at least on the AP clerk world, right? Some of their roles may change, right? And you may need to train your AP clerks. So some of these roles are very clerical, and some of these people have been doing it for a long time. And now they'll see the risk that their job may go away, right? And that AI is doing it faster and quicker and probably more efficient than they're doing it. So I think a little bit of adoption and training and giving these folks, explaining to these folks what AI means to them and how it can help them do their job, motivate them, and maybe opportunities for them to train, get redeveloped, and even play a bigger role within the organization.
Got it. And any specific, ideas when it comes to mitigating these risks apart from proper training?
Yeah, I think getting the at least purchasing folks or the accounts payable folks in early in some of the adoption of AI, right? Getting them to be more involved in that adoption and involvement in any implementation you're doing, getting their getting their feedback early, making sure that they're involved in this and not and not be feeling that they just have to do it because the company's telling them to do it, but making them feel like they're playing a role in it and getting some of their feedback because they're doing the job day to day. And so you want to know what they're doing and how AI can help them and talk to them about it. That should help minimize some of these risks that you may feel around the people issue in both purchasing and accounts payable.
Got it. Got it. And when we talk about recommendations, Tony, so what would be your recommendation for the order of tasks within the procure-to-pay space for AI adoption? Keeping in consideration the perceived risk.
I would say some of it is making the decision between, do you continue to do manual data entry? If you can, and you don't adopt, and it becomes really difficult to, at least manage your vendors, manage relationships with your vendors. Just manual, if you continue to make manual payments. So, for instance, if you don't adopt like the old before COVID, I think a lot of people were continuing to use checks, right, and manual making checks. And I think people had to adopt because of COVID, right? And no one wanted to go to an office. No one wanted to, physically print the check out and physically sign the check. And I think people adopted to ACH payments a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So now people are actually making electronic payments. So I think with more understanding of AI, I think the adoption of AI will be something that most organizations will accept, knowing that, the efficiencies and knowing that there's probably minimum risk around that.
Okay. And what would be your suggestion to build versus buy, when it comes to AI-led automation within companies?
Now, again, this is a personal preference. And systems that most people have, right? So I would say that you'll see that a lot of the big companies like an Oracle and SAP or NetSuite will be coming up with their own AI solutions. I mean, they have a lot of solutions nowadays that uses OCR technology for accounts payable. So I think people can, build on that. But I also think that, some of that's not their key focus in that area, right? They're not focusing on AP solutions. They're building on big ERP systems, and they're not focusing on AP or purchasing alone. They probably have other modules that they're also working on and building out. So I think there'll be opportunities for smaller companies to come in and build out an AI solution that can be easily adaptable to organizations as a standalone, or that works with the current ERP systems, right? And we see that today with some of the AP solutions out there that you can quickly adopt and put onto an Oracle and SAP. So I think the decision to either build it or buy it. I think there's several companies that are actually leading on the AI side that's building some really cool AP purchasing technology. And then the decision to build it, I think will all be based on what the company's feeling is for risk and how they want to build it within their own technologies.
Correct. Got it. So, what kind of AI solutions, Tony, do you see emerging in the procure-to-pay space currently?
Yeah, I see that where AI can play a big role in the purchasing space or P2P space is that it can optimize cash flows, right? It can look at payment suggestions, it can look at payment terms, it can see what available cash you have. It can ensure that bills are paid on time, your vendors are happy. It can do a lot of the trending and it could do all that stuff for you, right? With minimum, I guess. Minimum people involvement in there. So I think AI can really help with your cash flow, which I think is the most important thing to a CFO at most places, is that they're always looking for cash. They're always looking to see how far your cash is going to take you. And I think AI can look at what we currently have open. They can make suggestions of what terms the vendors are willing to accept, and they can schedule out these payments, weeks, days, and months in advance, So you don't have to think about it and say, okay, I'm paying this vendor today, I'm paying this vendor next week, and figure out how much cash you have on hand. So a lot of those decisions can be made through an AI tool, and that's where I see where AI can play and emerge in being a more integrated part of finance when they start they're already doing the manual tasks of matching the invoices to purchase orders and receipts, but now they're actually making some of the decisions about what to pay vendors. And that's where I think maybe there's a little bit of hesitation on CFOs to give up that decision-making process. But I think with AI, they can probably optimize cash. They can look at discounts. They can take full advantage of what they see and outstanding on an AP. And they also know what the history of some of the vendors without you going back and looking yourself. So.
Got it. So just to wrap things up, Tony, just one last question, right? What is the kind of adoption that you see for AI-led procure-to-pay solutions over maybe the next couple of years?
Yeah, I see a lot of this automating, right? I think the manual tasks of data entry, of accounts payable, that could be going away. And there's solutions out there for that, like OCR technology. I also see where purchasing could be an area where that AI can play a big piece of it. Where I kind of mentioned it earlier, where maybe you're sending requisitions out, you have a list of approved vendors, and that takes time to analyze what they send back for quotes, and maybe that's something that AI could quickly look and decide which is the best vendor, which is the best price. So that could save people money. Then tying in with receipts, I think coming into a warehouse, people can the receipts are coming in, and as soon as it's scanned, I think AI now is looking for an invoice for that, right? And it can make it cool for you on a monthly basis, knowing that the invoice has not been received. And so those things can all be automated. They can make the whole AP, the procure-to-pay process, very automated. And now you probably could have less people, but it also can have people who are actually analyzing data and looking to see, what are some of the gaps. They look at some of the trends. You can, all those things could be done over the next couple of years. It could also code invoices, right? Where, it knows where, a utility invoice gets coded, right? And in most companies, something like that could get allocated to, 10 departments. And now, AI can actually allocate that for you, right? Without even asking you how to allocate it. So those things could all be easier in the future. And I think if we let AI do some of the analytic work that is being handled today by AP clerks.
Got it. Thank you so much, Tony, for being a part of this session and talking about the evolution of procure-to-pay. Talking about the current landscape, the challenges, the future roadmap, as well as the infusion of AI with all of it. It was really great having you, and the discussion was really fruitful. So thank you.
Thank you.